on up. So welcome everyone to today's Midnight 6.3 training session. In this topic series, I'll be going over our POs and proof modules. In general, we'll be looking at how to set up purchase orders and how to associate vendors and their contacts to purchase orders, as well as associate inventory against them. We'll also look at how to create requisitions versus standard POs. And we'll also be looking at our proofs in terms of how to prepare and send them off for dispatch, how to solicit approval from your clients, and also how to set them up for interaction within estimates and orders versus simply through the proofing module itself. To start off, to access our proofs module and to access our POs and vendors module, we just need to access the respective tabs here at the top. The purchasing module brings us to our POs and also subsequently to our vendors. And the tools is where we'll find our proofs listed at. We'll be focusing on proofs later today. I'll start with the purchasing to get things going. So in the purchasing module, you're immediately brought to your PO and requisitions tab. From here, you can do a couple of things to access and search for your POs. You can either click and take advantage of the filters at the top of our PO table, which you can search and sort for info based on what you need. Or use a tandem or combination of columns to filter out your info as reliably as possible. And then to clear all that data en masse, you can either delete the components one at a time or hit the clear filters button. You can also apply a sort, sorting alphabetically in ascending or descending order by clicking the column header. And to reset this, you can click the Reset Filters button here. Other ways to search for POs include using the extended search to allow you to search by a date range, allowing you to search for your closed purchase orders, or if you have any defined values or UDFs set up for your POs, you can plug in which user-defined value you'd like to search for, and then plug in an instance of data to match. Do be aware that any data that you type in the filters here are applied immediately, but any options typed in the extended search at the top do require the use of the Submit button in order to actually have the search run for. To access purchase orders, you'd need to either take advantage of the Recently Visited tab on the far left, which when expanded shows your 10 most recently accessed POs. Bearing in mind that this is user specific, so as you, the user, make any access to POs, changes, etc., or create new ones, the POs that you access will be listed here regardless of the computer that you're accessing your POs from. And if you don't need to use the Recently Visited, you can always just click the blue text elements under the project or PO numbers for any of your purchase orders to get into them. Creating a PO does require a vendor, and we'll start by looking at our vendors menu before we create it and modify a purchase order. From here, we can see our vendors, and we can access them in much the same way as our purchase orders. To create a new vendor, you can use the green New Vendor button at the top. And to access a previously existing one, you can just click their blue text. We'll create a new vendor in this case. In here, you can add the company name or vendor name and also a code, as well as general contact information that represents the best ways to access that particular user. You can plug in an email address, the website, and terms and conditions which would be applied to any purchase orders created for that vendor. Additionally, you can select a company, which helps determine the logo and licensee or return address info for you that can be placed on the purchase orders. And finally, you can make sure the active box is checked to make sure that they are indeed selectable. So at this point, we've effectively created a vendor. Within the vendor, we can assign contacts by adding a new contact to select. And by plugging in a business email, then this email is what will get used on any POs that get distributed out of midnight. The other information like contact type, business phone, title, and comments are just general bits of information and don't necessarily tie to any specific logic. Additionally, you can set up the items in which are accessed through your vendor. These items are controlled through your frequently purchased items list. And any item within your entire warehouse module that has the PO item checkbox checked is available for selection underneath this dropdown. You can select your basic information by picking your item, in which the vendor code will be defaulted to your own item code. The description will default to what you have it set for the item as well. And the unit price is what you would be expected to list as your per piece cost. Once you click Save, this item will now be available for quick select underneath any PO assigned to your company of choice. So now that I've done this, I can go into my POs and requisitions. And from here, I can create a new purchase order. Select my new vendor. Fill out any relevant information for the vendor's PO in general, such as the contact, the PO name, and any other documentation, dates, or values of invoice number, etc., that need to be tied to the PO. Additionally, I can select the items in which I've logged as the frequently purchased items for this particular vendor. You'll notice that once I select this item, my unit price is updating. I could place in my quantity, a markup if I plan to mark this up in terms of sales. I can tie the element to an order. And in the future, I can edit these rows to mark my material as being received with a date in and quantity of received amount. Now, you're not limited to using specifically items logged against a customer or a vendor. You can always take advantage of the description field to just type in base values. So in this case, I've got an item that already exists in my database, which if I decide to take advantage of our inventory's receiving system, will be tied to it. And I have an item that I've simply added that has nothing to do with my inventory system, but I'm still able to generate a cost for. This all sums together to give me an extended price total, and if I have a markup, then I'll actually have an actual invoice amount prepared. Otherwise, this is the expected total of what it is that you owe to your vendor, and the entirety of this info can be pushed out into your accounting software such as QuickBooks or Peachtree by clicking in the details for any particular item, marking a GL ID for the item in question, and then proceeding to the the orders accounting export feature, so you can push this data out. Now, in general, we did just create a request because that is what is defined as a prerequisite entry for a purchase order in our system. Typically, we would assume that an administrator or other supervisor figure would convert your request into a PO after confirming that this indeed does need to be dispatched off for order. I'm able to do this because I'm an administrator on my account, but if you have security set up on your side to prevent non-administrators or non-sales figures, such as managers, to be able to make this decision, then it would simply be locked to request until the other figure jumps in to make that change. For what's worth, what I've also done here at this point is just create a simple PO. This is just a PO meant to restock inventory at our location. And we can see the document that gets created along with it. We may need to alternatively tie this PO to a job for job costing purposes, such as if we had to make a special order of stock to complete a job. To assign a purchase order to an existing order in your system, you can do so in two ways. You can either click the order number, select order button, and actually pick the job in which you're applying the order to. Or you can select which order each component is a part of, under the assumption that you're placing one order to one vendor for a variety of goods to be split across several different jobs of yours. In this case now, the job detail reports to check for profitability. We'll look to the line items and pull any line items that have an order number with their extended price against that particular order for a job costing profitability check. And for any line items that do not have an order number, they'll be checked against the order number listed here in the PO's header. And finally, if there's no order number listed in either location, then the job is simply, the PO is simply not marked as an expense against anything. The other way that you can create POs is straight from within the job itself. If you are to create an order that has inventory on it, a PO may be part of that. And in order to make sure that you create the PO from the job itself, you're able to view the information from the job detail analysis report, seeing a PO expenses tied to the job. In this case now, you can see the PO expense, the PO number that my expense is tied to, and where the actual sum total comes from. And you can check that against your profit to see where your true profit exists. Now, if you bill your customer for the inventory that has been ordered on top of the work that has been done, you may need to convert that inventory to the job in which it's from. In order to do this, you can go to the quick links of the purchase order itself and click the Add Items to Order button. This allows you to pick the job in which you're tying your goods to, assign a service to those goods, probably either one referred to as buyout or materials expense. Plug a markup if you're going to be charging the customer a bit more. And upon clicking Save and Close, the goods will be cast onto the new order as a line item. Depending on which service you select, the item will appear there with the newly adjusted price and the original quantity for billing purposes, and that will charge against the revenue of what's actually due for the job. So that way you can help determine your profitability on a second level. Finally, within the purchase orders themselves, we have a handful of reports that you can use to view this information. You can, of course, use the purchase order report to view the PO as a whole. You can use the PO by vendor or PO by order list reports to actually pull up your information in a bit more sorted manner. And if you're prepared to close your PO or prepare for invoicing, you can plug in a date. So that way, your sales reports can all track closed data when comparing the numbers against each other. Now, to handle some of the choices in which you saw for drop-downs, we can modify a few of those features or default values by going into the admin menu under our global settings for POs. The core figure in here is that when a PO is created, you can turn on a review process that requires administrative override to convert a request into a PO. That is done by having this checkbox checked. And additionally, some of the other figures that we saw in our company settings to help determine our licensee or return address info are derived from the address and logo that we see in the company settings menu. Additionally, we do have the ability to create user-defined fields for the vendors as well as the purchase orders themselves. You can do those by accessing the user-defined fields list and creating a vendor, purchase order, or purchase order item UDF named according to what you deem necessary. Using this, just like in our other areas of Midnight, require that you simply edit the row, create a label name that is not the same as the field name by default, fill in a field type such as what the UDF is supposed to refer to, either simply a text value, perhaps numbers only, or have a calendar selected when popping it up. Filling in a mask or some text that is to exist there by default. And filling in a field size or how much you can actually allow to appear. Once done, make sure the active box is checked and click Save to Commit. And you'll have a new user-defined field in which you can classify the title of for any purpose on your respective screens. Another process that ties into orders is our proofing system. Proofs can be accessed in the estimates or orders as well. And it can be accessed through the Tools module by being brought straight into proofs as soon as you click Tools. This screen functions similarly to the purchase order screen, in which you have your filters at the top and your quick access bar on the side that shows your 10 most recently visited. And you have an extended search that allows you to search for closed proofs. Versus your open proofs. In order to create a new proof, you can use the New Proof Request button, or you can create a proof while within an estimate or order. If you create a new proof through this screen, you're brought to a pretty blank screen that shows only the request date pre-populated. In this card, or in this case, you can fill out a proof description, fill out a customer that you'd like to tie the proof to. And by this process, your estimates and orders list will update to show only estimates or orders for that particular customer. And if you have your services marked in such a way that you can have a proof logged against those particular services, you actually pick the service that your proof is tied to. You can also fill out who's required to receive an email and should thus be able to approve of your proof. I'll plug myself here just so I can show you what the email looks like. And finally, you can attach a file by clicking the Choose File button and selecting whatever component it is that you need to send. Before clicking Save and Close to actually push it out. Now at this point, a proof request email is generated that allows you to see who you're sending it to and who is being sent from. The from will default to your email address as you're logged into Midnight, and the to will default to all of your approvers that you have set up here on the top. And finally, you can customize the body text of your message as well as the subject line if necessary before clicking Save and Close to send your proof details out. After doing this, an email is received that lets you, as the user, see that a proof has been created. And if you are using our support portal, you can actually jump into the portal and assign or access the proof as needed. Now, if you're not using our portal to access proofs for your customers, you can instead go to your global settings, and under the Proofing tab, turn on Show Link in Email, and fill out a proof email message to go with it. In this case, if you send out a proof now, an email will include a link to get that customer into the proof without using our portal system. I'll demonstrate how to create a proof within an order, and that will generate our link for us this time now that I've turned on the feature. In order to do this, you would go into your Proofs tab of your order, click the Add New Proof button, and fill out your general info. Along with the recipients and file of what needs to get sent out. In this case now, you can see that there is a body text that includes the link and our thank you message that we added from our admin menu. And then we're brought back into the estimate or order in this case, in which we can see the proof that was created and allows us to re-access it as we need to. Now in this case, this is a new email in which I've received. And if I click the link, I can access the proof request. Now bear in mind, anybody who uses Midnight will be able to send out proofs as long as they have security permissions to do so, but your customers do not require an account within Midnight in order to approve or reject or whatever you see classifications for your proofs. At this point, I've now been able to see the details of the proof. I can fill out information by downloading the file, reviewing what I need to, confirming whether or not I approve of it, or if I approve of the comment, or if I reject it with a comment and would like to apply my own file instead. Once this process is done, the user would be expected to click the close window. An email response is sent back to the person who sent out the proof in the first place, letting them know that this email address on this time and date approved it with a comment of, and their comment would be listed here. And us as the user of Midnight can also jump into the proof by clicking the link attached to actually see A, more details on the approval status, and B, see any approval statuses that have been done by each of the recipients. If you need to send the proof email again because for whatever reason the first time it did not go out, then you can always use the red send proof email button, which will send a repeat copy out to any of the required clients with a format similar to what we did in the first place. And of course, if we hit save and close, we're completed and can review the order. And we come to the Proofs tab. We see more general information for the proof. Now you'll see that even though I did approve of the proof myself, that the status is still listed as pending customer. This will auto-update if all of the approvers for a proof have been marked as having approved it. If one user has not yet accessed or checked out the proof or has not approved of it, then the pending customer will still be listed for that particular proof. And finally, all this information is identical within estimates. So it's very easy to get back and forth within your proofs to make sure that you can highlight all the elements and make sure your customers are able to see and modify and approve of them as they need. The last thing for our proofs is to make sure that our services can have a proof attached to them. Within your admin menus, standard service list, you can hit the enable proofing button within that specific service. And then as long as that service is on the order or estimate that's being used, then when you select it, you can attach the proof to that service. And that'll make classifying your proofs a little bit easier under the assumption that you as the user have an order set up that includes more than one component that could be interpreted for what a proof has been sent off for. That completes today's training on POs and proofs in Midnight. I'll go ahead and wrap up today's session, take everyone off of mute, and allow you to ask any questions that you may have.